Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, November 6th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Rutgers game is tomorrow. Get excited. The game against Michigan in 36 days. We previewed the Rutgers game in some detail with Alex Gleitman on Wednesday's morning show. Took a look at some of the other big national games on the schedule on Thursday's morning show with Bill Bender. So today it seemed like a great time to just talk some Big Ten football. My guest today is a gentleman who loves punts. So he seems like he is just the person for this show. Buckeye Scoop beat reporter Tony Gerdeman. Tony, thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me.
You're welcome, Tom. And punting is winning. There's a reason the game is called football, after all. And if the ball meets the foot, that is winning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, if you're throwing the ball, it is quite literally the name of the game, to be kicking the ball. So
it's not called throw ball.
That's true. Maybe it should be, but it's not. Not in Big Ten country. Let's start with a high noon showdown between one team that I think we all expected could be 2-0, and also the Indiana Hoosiers, who actually are 2-0. Number 23 Michigan 1-1, coming in off of that pretty surprising loss to Michigan State last weekend. Indiana ranked 13th. They beat Penn State by that much in overtime and in week one. And then beat Rutgers last weekend to move to 2-0. Okay, which one would be weirder, Tony? Michigan wins, okay? Michigan loses and is 1-2, or Indiana is a top 10 team. Like, it is possible that both of those things could happen if Indiana wins this game on Saturday. Which one would be weirder to you?
I believe the Indiana being 3-0 with wins against Penn State and Michigan, and possibly being in that top 10 is weirder than Michigan being 1-2, because we've seen that over the years here and there. I'm just gonna assume Rich Rod did it a couple of times, once or twice, and knowing kind of what we knew about this Michigan team coming in, that there are going to be question marks, and 1-2 wasn't out of the realm of possibility. Although they've done it, they got to the 1-1 opposite of, I think, how we maybe thought they would. They beat Minnesota and then lose to Michigan State. They didn't get the memo that it was supposed to be the other way. But then to have them lose to Indiana at Indiana, I don't think it doesn't feel like a stretch anymore. So 1-2 Michigan doesn't feel much like a stretch. But Indiana, thinking about them before the season as 3-0 and top 10, I think we both have solid respect for Indiana and Tom Allen, and knew that this was a potential, and we talked about the need for it to happen. But I don't know how much we talked about them being 3-0 and beating both Michigan and Penn State this year.
Yeah, I think we both talked about, this was the year that they were going to get someone, whether it was Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State. They were going to reach up and get someone this year. That it hadn't happened forever. This was going to be that it happened. They've already gotten one team. It's like, well, there's really nothing keeping them from getting another team. Michigan definitely did not look invincible last weekend against Michigan State. This is just one of those times when it just seems like, I picked Michigan to go 4-5 this year. It is laying out exactly for Michigan to go 4-5 this year. I will still, even though I picked it, I will believe it when I see it that they really are going to go 4-5 this year. This just feels like a game where Michigan is not quite as bad as they looked last week against Michigan State. Indiana's probably, Indiana has gotten their one, and, can they do it again? They could, but this just feels like, to me, a game where Michigan, Indiana might be leading in the fourth quarter, but then, Michigan kind of pulls it out, one way or another.
Because that's what they do against Indiana, is it's close, and then Michigan inevitably wins. But what Michigan State did is they made plays. And so you can't say like Michigan just went out and lost it and just got rolled over. Michigan State still had to make those plays. They completed 5 passes of 30 yards or more, and that's guys making catches. And sure, some of those were wide open. Not all of them were, and some of the contested catches led to scores, and that's what Indiana's going to do. Yes, they can have success against Michigan's secondary, but you have to execute. You have to complete those passes. And is there a Ricky White outside for Indiana as there was for Michigan State? Although I don't think we knew there was a Ricky White at Michigan State until we saw him play against Michigan. We know Whop Villior is a very good receiver for Indiana, and he can move inside and outside. I do wonder if they just track him with Michigan safety Daxton Hill, who is their best cover guy, and just leave the outside guys to, whatever, just don't burn the house down, basically. And I don't know that they can't not burn the house down.
The old double negative bowl. That'll be clear, concise, indeed. Yes, that would kind of be how I would approach this if I was Michigan. Like, put your best cover guy on their best receiver and say, this is not Ohio State. This is not a team that's rolling a 6 deep wide receiver rotation with guys running 4.4s. So, take the one good guy and kind of limit him as best you can, and then say somebody else beat us. And I don't know if they can do that. And we have seen, I think, one pretty good Michael Penix game and one like not super impressive Michael Penix game in terms of accuracy. And Indiana's tackles, I think, are not fantastic. I think there's some questions about how they'll hold up against Aiden Hutchinson and Kwity Paye in the pass rush. So, you tell me how accurate and how much time Michael Penix has, and I'll tell you if Indiana wins the game. Next one, Nebraska. Hey, they actually get to play a football game this week. How about that? 0-1 Cornhuskers going to 2-0 Northwestern. This is another one where Northwestern was so bad last year. So bad. Mick McCall, the offensive coordinator, had been there forever, and they just gotten worse and worse and worse. And last year was like, when they punting really was winning for them last year. It was like, oh, they got 0 yards. Oh, that was a pretty good drive. They didn't go backwards. That's good. But all of a sudden this year, I mean, they blew out Maryland week 1, and that now looks a little better now that Maryland has a win over Minnesota. And, they beat Iowa last week, and Iowa's not fantastic, but they came from behind and beat Iowa. I mean, am I crazy that it sure looks like if Minnesota is bad and Nebraska already has a loss and Wisconsin may not be eligible, like this is like looking like it could be Purdue or Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game facing as representing the West.
Yeah, and it may just come down to that Purdue Northwestern game, because right now those are your only 2 undefeated teams in the West, and Iowa at 0-2 as well. Like there's very little, and we're not talking a lot of games to make up ground. And so, I'm interested to see what Nebraska does. This is their first game since the season opener. They won't be facing Justin Fields, so I think the pass defense will be a little bit better. But you're right, with Northwestern's offense, getting rid of Mick McCall I don't think it's a coincidence that the offense has become something that can score points, because you're right. Last year, they got 3 offensive plays in a row and then punted. Like, whoa, 3 plays in a row. Good job. Yeah, at least that's an accomplishment. And this year, they're moving the ball. They have Peyton Ramsey at quarterback, the former Hoosier quarterback, who is certainly adequate to win games, or at least move the ball to score enough points to be in the 20s, maybe low 30s, to give your team a chance. And Northwestern just never had that last year. And they would churn through quarterbacks just looking for something, and they had nothing. And so at least Peyton Ramsey gives them a fighting chance. And right now at 2-0, this is, I think, a kind of a gut check for Nebraska. They're 3.5 point underdogs. They probably shouldn't win, but at some point Scott Frost needs to win these games. And for Nebraska to fight as hard as they did this season, to have a season, I think it would say a lot if they went to Northwestern and came away with a win.
Well, they unlike normal games in Evanston, Nebraska will not have the home field advantage this weekend without 30,000 Nebraska fans packing Ryan Field. And, Ryan Day talked about it a little bit this week, that there's some challenges with going on the road in the Big Ten, that you don't have to deal with the crowds. Like, okay, cross that off the list, but there's a whole bunch of extra protocols that are involved in flying and staying in hotels, and you don't get dressed in the visiting locker room. You get dressed at your hotel and then bus over and then throw your pads on at the stadium. I mean, it's like a weird, different thing. And you're as routine dependent as football teams are, you're out of your routine. So that can throw you off a little bit. But this might be one of the most intriguing games of the weekend to me in the Big Ten. Just what happens here, does Nebraska start really making a push? Does Northwestern kind of take a big step towards Indianapolis? That's an intriguing one. A differently intriguing one, maybe a little bit of a car crash game. Like, ooh, don't look right at it, but you can't quite look away. Is Michigan State and Iowa? Boy, this seems like two teams that are just begging to lose this game. Iowa is just right on the verge of quitting the season. You can smell it. They've had all sorts of weird off-season stuff and program culture stuff, and strength coach got fired because of player complaints, and Kirk Ferentz has not exactly covered himself in glory all this offseason. You got to wonder exactly how, Ohio State talks about the brotherhood. Like, yeah, it might be a little bit of a dysfunctional brotherhood at Iowa right now. And then you've got Michigan State, who probably, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, probably has been enjoying that win over Michigan a little too much this week and is like just begging to come out flat for a noon game on the road at Iowa City. Iowa's favored by 6.5. Iowa's 0-2 and favored by nearly a touchdown against a team that just beat Michigan. That's probably the first time in history that sentence has ever been said.
Well, the interesting thing here is Iowa is 0-2. Their losses are to the two undefeated Big Ten West teams. They lost 24-20 at Purdue to start the season. Then last week, 21-20 at home to Northwestern. So these are close losses, but I agree. It's another loss. Is that it? Then do they shut it down and just in terms of effort and caring? Because then after Michigan State, they're at Minnesota, and if they lose that, you're 0-4. And then I'm not saying they're going to lose to Michigan State, but I think this is a big game to just stop the slide, and they should be better than Michigan State. They are, can Kirk Ferentz convince them like we are very close to being 2-0 in the Big Ten West? We're very close to that, and I don't know, because I don't know how much the players believe him anymore, and how much they buy in. And if I'm assuming Iowa wins this game, because like you can't expect Michigan State to execute well when on a high, like when they're maybe a little bit full of themselves. But if they do what they did last week against Michigan, then they can absolutely win. Rocky Lombardi is actually playing kind of well. I think he's thrown for over 300 yards in both games this year, or close to it. And that's very surprising. And, I think for Michigan State, it's always the same. If they can just stay out of their own way and not pick up a bad penalty on 3rd and 15 when they've stopped the opponent, or the same thing on the other side, a hold on 3rd and 15, or just a bad penalty wherever when it's like the most inopportune time to change the complexion of the game. Michigan State just stays out of their way. Maybe they can do something. But I also don't think we should put too many eggs in the Spartan basket after that game last week. And that was a rivalry game where, Tom, quote unquote, anything can happen. And boy, did it.
It sure did. And if you're looking for a reason to feel optimistic for Michigan State this weekend, all the stuff that got Michigan last week, which was no real great downfield passing game, cornerbacks who were not exactly burners. Michigan has a few too many guys who run 4.6s and 4.7s on the outside. I don't think Iowa's got a bunch of track stars at corner either. So, maybe this is something that Michigan State can use the same basic ideas and try and cobble something together. If Rocky Lombardi can just, heave some 9 routes down there, like, yeah, you never know. Maybe you can pull this off. One team that is probably not going to pull it off, Maryland. They're 1-1. They are on the road. Maryland is 1-1. Penn State 0-2. The 0-2 team is a 25-point favorite at home against Maryland, and this is another one where, boy, I think we're going to find out what the season's going to be like for Penn State, because there's 2 different ways this game can go. All of a sudden, Maryland looked competent against Minnesota, and Minnesota has no defense at all. Like not even like a pretend defense. It was, bad, like real bad. Like Friday night watching that Maryland Minnesota game last week, it was like, oh, I don't think Michigan's actually that good. Oh, okay. And then you watch them against Michigan State, it was like, aha. So I was right. Aha. Penn Penn State, I assume they come out and take care of business and get their season back on track and end up finishing second or third in the Big Ten East, probably. But boy, if they really wanted to pack it in here, this would be a week to do it.
This would be a bad week to do it, considering all of the recruiting ramifications as well, because they recruit in the same area. But like, how surprised were you by Talia Tagovailoa against Minnesota? He looked really, really good in that game, throwing and running. He was 26 for 35 for 394 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. 1 week after being 14 for 25 against Northwestern for 94 yards with 3 interceptions. Now, that was his first start. And if this is the growth he makes from game 1 to game 2, what does he look like in game 3? And I do really like Penn State corner Joey Porter Jr. I thought he had a pretty good game against Ohio State. He's an intriguing prospect. But you get into the pass rush of these Penn State defensive ends, and maybe we talked them up too much last week, but that's just, I think give credit to Thayer Munford and Nicholas Petit-Frere for containing those guys. I'm not going to break any news here, but Maryland does not have those kind of offensive tackles. So the Penn State pass rush might be an issue in this one. And yeah, you said 25 points. That's an awful lot for not competent, dangerous. I don't know. For as considering what Maryland looked like a week ago, I think 25 points is a lot. I don't like that.
Yeah, that was one that jumped out to me as well. That I mean, Penn State's good. I think Penn State should win this game. Probably win this game fairly comfortably. But I mean, are they going to win it 38-10 or 38-13? Like that's a lot. I think Maryland can put up 20 points in this game, and I'm
42, like 42-24, something like that. I mean,
yeah, I think that's very, very much within the realm of possibility. Yeah, that seemed like an awful lot of points for a team that, I mean, Penn State has decent personnel, but they're not, they're not unbeatable. And well, very clearly, as we have seen the last 2 weeks, Penn State is not unbeatable. But yeah, that jumped out to me as like this may be one of those someone knows something lines, because I remember last year, someone on the beat had talked themselves into taking Maryland in the points, and that was the night before that was a Friday night game before the Nebraska game, and we had all found our way to a sports book, and it was very apparent at halftime that bet was not going to cash. So you never know with these two teams, but yeah, that does seem like a lot of points. Next one up, I'm going to call this one the Eclipse game, because don't look right at it. Make one of those viewers where you like look through like on the paper on the other side of the whole, like just going through a little pinhole in a box. Yeah, don't look directly at this one. Minnesota 0-2 at Illinois 0-2. Minnesota is 0-2, just lost to Maryland, and is a 7-point favorite on the road. Your thoughts?
I do. You just reminded me. I do need to go to the store and get some paper plates and just prepare myself for this one. Maybe order some sunglasses or something like that. But yeah, this Minnesota needs this one. I don't think they need it more than Illinois for sure. If Minnesota is going to continue and PJ Fleck is going to continue this momentum that they had from last season, you can't lose at Illinois. And if you do, then any momentum I think you had last season is completely gone. Now, the positive for Minnesota here is that Illinois is second to last nationally in pass defense completion percentage. They're allowing, I believe, 87.5% completion percentage on the year. That's 2 games. Nebraska, of course, is still dead last for their one game where Justin Fields completed 21 of 22. I don't think you can hold that entirely against Nebraska, nor should you project that out each and every week. Whereas there's been 2 weeks of data for Illinois. Now, the first week was like Graham Mertz, like the 21 of 22 or whatever, but last week they weren't much better. And this week they come up against Tanner Morgan, who is an accurate quarterback in the past and here this season as well. Last year he had a 21 of 22 game and another 18 of 20. You got a couple of decent receivers, more than a decent receiver in Rashad Bateman. And I don't know that Illinois can handle a shootout right now with their third string quarterback, who I don't know that he was terrible last week. I'll be honest. I didn't watch a lot of Illinois last week. and I don't believe I recorded it, so I may have missed it. But Minnesota needs this one more than Illinois, and I think they are more well equipped to get it done.
Yeah, Minnesota has football players whose names you know, which is generally a good start. So that's a good thing. Yeah, I would put my money on Minnesota to at least win. I'm looking at the weather for all these games. Boy, this is weird. Like this is the 12,432nd weirdest thing to happen this year. But it's the first weekend in November in Big Ten country, and it is like 72 and sunny for all of these games. Like you would take this weather on September 20th, let alone November 7th. So yeah, it should be a nice weekend for football. Speaking of nice, I dug up some really fun stats for this week's Ohio State Rutgers game. I'll have that story posted on BuckeyeScoop.com. It's called 10 Numbers and Notes to Know for the Ohio State versus Rutgers game. That's at Buckeye Scoop. Tony and I shared our thoughts on this game in particular on the Buckeye Weekly podcast episode that dropped yesterday. But Tony, give everyone like your 1 second takeaway that is more, just slightly more information than Ohio State has better football players than Rutgers.
We have to submit our little write-ups to Mark on Thursday so that he can compile all of our staff picks. And the way I said it was basically, if you're trying to predict the outcome of this game, you have to predict what happens with the Ohio State starters and then what happens with the backups. And then you add the two together. And I think with the starters, I went something like 42-0, and then the backups are like 14-7 over the course of the last, say, 20 minutes of the game. But I don't see any way that Rutgers gets enough pressure on Justin Fields to impact the passing game. Rutgers does not have enough offense to do much of anything, and quarterback Noah Vedral, I don't think he's going to have much time against the Ohio State defensive ends. I would expect maybe some sort of a defensive score because he kind of is a little freewheeling with the football, can be, and we saw that last week. I think he had 3 interceptions, although some of that was just great plays by Indiana, including one hit on him where the ball just popped up like 15 yards in the air and a Hoosier came down with it. And so there will be an opportunity for the Buckeyes to make plays defensively. And I think we're going to see a lot of guys out there trying to do that. A lot of hungry young guys getting their opportunities and some vets just out there. This is a game where you can kind of have more fun maybe than a typical game where you're not so concerned, even though they won't say that. But yeah, I think, Tom, as you said, a little too much talent for the Buckeyes in this one.
Spicy, but probably accurate. I am a little concerned that our game pick comments are going to be extremely similar for for the staff picks that release on Friday at Buckeye Scoop. But this is one of those weeks when it's like, yeah, I think everyone's analysis is going to be pretty darn similar. And I think 6 of the 8 of us were within like 4 points of the final score last week against Penn State. So truly expert picks for once. That felt pretty good and exciting. That was good. So you can find those at BuckeyeScoop.com today as well. And this is a great time to join Buckeye Scoop. You can get access to our incredible team of insiders, all the insight that you can possibly imagine from the recruiting insiders and analysts, Mark Givler, Bill Green, Mick Walker, Alex Gleitman. Got Ross Fulton on X's and O's. You love him on those Tuesday shows. I see the download numbers. I know you all love Ross Fulton. You can get his work at Buckeye Scoop as well. Tony and I covering the team. Steph Odie, Kirk Barton. I think I've got everyone. We have a lot of people. We can like field a softball team with this with our staff. There is a ton of great insight and analysis all at BuckeyeScoop.com. That Ask the Insiders board is a ton of fun. Bill Green just had another one of his legendary Thursday chats yesterday. That is always a lot of fun. We all get to hop in that thread and share our thoughts, answer questions, bust each other's chops a little bit. Mark shares terrible opinions about food. It's a lot of fun. So it is. This is the time to join BuckeyeScoop.com. You can become a member now. It is like the price of a lousy chain store pizza. Don't go out for coffee a couple times this month. Like it's really not much. You get a ton of bang for your buck. And that is all at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure to check out all of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you want. We are there. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there and also leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're at it. We will have a pregame show tomorrow from Ohio Stadium. We'll have a live postgame episode of Buckeye Weekly, our instant reaction show after the game. That is all for Buckeye Scoop members. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys all for listening. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football, and we will talk to you Monday.